What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of AGR's Pop Culture Reviews. And somewhere right now, I imagine Anita Sarkeesian is texting that she's being harassed by the gaming industry. Now, it's not just your critics that are poking holes in your central thesis anymore, Anita. The gaming industry is really responding to some of the nonsense that you've been spewing for a very long time. Looks like the show's finally over. Because let me tell you, this title is one big smack in the face to everything that you've been trying to spread for a very long time, much to the detriment of a lot of critics. Now here's the thing, if you're going to put yourself out there, that's fine, and many people have already said this a lot more eloquently than I will, but you have to make sure that whatever it is that you're spreading can be peer-reviewed and can stand up to scrutiny. And when you're willing to talk about some of that stuff and really be scrutinized for some of the things that you're saying, then you can be considered an academic and start hiding behind that victim shield that you always do. Alright, that aside, this is a very exciting day for me because I didn't think that I was going to see a Naughty Dog title, especially the Uncharted series, for several years. And we actually got a gift from Naughty Dog Studios. It is so amazing that I'm going to be able to review yet another title, and I have to say, guys, I'm really impressed. So it gives me great pleasure to be able to review Naughty Dog's latest title, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. Let's take a closer look. Now, it kind of goes without saying, but it shouldn't be understated that this is a very important title for several reasons. Mostly because for the first time in this series' history, we're not playing as the main protagonist, Nathan Drake. Instead, we got this really fantastic kind of expansion of Uncharted 4: A Thief's End in Chloe Frazer and Nadine Ross both being the main protagonists in the story. I mean, for me personally, it's pretty bold and pretty fantastic that not only are the main protagonists in the story female, but they're also minorities, and that is freaking awesome, guys. Now, one small gripe that I do have about this game is that you don't get as many exotic locations as you do in the previous titles. Most of this takes place in India, but you know what? I don't know about you guys, I am absolutely fascinated with India, the culture, the lore, especially the historical context. It really sets a mood for this game, and I loved every single minute of it. Now, if you've played the other Uncharted series titles, you'll be very familiar with the gameplay here, but they do add a couple additional things, which actually I think work pretty well. I especially like the inclusion of a lockpick system. Now granted, I do have to admit that the lockpicking mechanism here is not as robust as say as something we see in Elder Scrolls V Skyrim or Elder Scrolls Online, but it is still pretty cool, and it sets up some very unique challenges and some very tense moments when you're trying to get away from enemies. My favorite part about using this mechanic is pulling up to some kind of abandoned truck where there's a loot crate, and you can pick the lock and get various weapons that you'll need to continue on your adventure. So overall, it was pretty cool. You know, one of the hallmarks of the Uncharted series as a whole has definitely been the kind of platforming and parkour mechanic that we have really grown to love as fans of this series. And here it makes a triumphant return, and for some reason the animations seem a little bit smoother this time around. Not only that, but the set pieces, so to speak, seem a little bit more intricate as well. I had a very amazing time basically scaling the buildings in India, or Calcutta, and I think it's where the opening sequence is, but overall it was pretty cool. They also include some very unique things this time around which we didn't see in previous games, so I think that it was a natural progression of where this parkour mechanic can go, and I loved every minute of it, guys. I didn't realize how much I love this mechanic and how much I love playing in it until I did it again in this title, and it always brought a smile to my face. Thankfully, similar to Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, the mechanic that I really loved was the stealth mechanic, and it never got old being able to hide in the grass and sneaking up on enemies and taking them down. Now, something really funny that happens in this game, I don't know if I noticed it before, but there's this kind of snapping of the neck when you take down enemies in stealth mode, and it's freaking awesome. Now, as a historian, one of the things that I always loved about the Uncharted series is that they definitely give you the opportunity to learn about the lore, the culture, and everything else about the country that you're in, particularly with the artifacts. Now, you get that same experience this time where you can look at ancient artifacts as you're going along in your journey, and you can learn about them when you flip them over or you read some passage. It basically makes a lot of reference to Ganesha and Shiva and stuff like that, and it's really freaking cool, guys. You know, the inquisitive side of me just loves this mechanic, and I don't know, it really makes me feel good that we're able to expose a new generation of gamers to the rich culture of other countries. Now, if you guys have been watching my reviews, you'll know how much I hate Michael Bay, and in the movies it's a little bit jarring to watch those Michael Bay moments. But in these games, Michael Bay moments are absolutely amazing, and mostly because it's so interactive. You actually get engrossed because you know that if you make a wrong turn or something like that, you're gonna get killed. So this game absolutely has these wonderful Michael Bay moments, and I gotta tell you, they're exhilarating when you're just running through these set pieces and trying to save your life. It's absolutely amazing. What's pretty hair-raising about them is that most of the times you think that you're safe at one point, and then, a ceiling falls out or the floor falls out beneath you. It's freaking amazing, guys. And Uncharted is really known for this, and they continue that tradition. Now, the previous Uncharted games, I didn't play on a PC and I played on a regular PlayStation. But I gotta say, the extra horsepower that the PlayStation Pro provides for this game really ups the graphics a lot. Some of these set pieces and locations are absolutely breathtaking, guys. And a lot of times I find myself just kind of looking around, panning around to see everything. It is so rich in terms of the foliage and the jungle and just the landscape of India. It's absolutely beautiful, guys. It's also pretty interesting too is that I've noticed that the environments are a lot more destructible and a lot more interactive. I mean, you can step in a wrong place and set off some kind of trap, not necessarily because it was there on purpose, but just because of the landscape. It's absolutely amazing. And oftentimes you get scared because you don't realize that you just set off something that you weren't completely expecting. Now, one of the cool things that I found apart from the stealth mechanic in the last game was definitely the ability to use your grapple weapon, which is freaking cool. It really sets up some very interesting and hair-raising situations at times, and I absolutely love that mechanic where you can dangle from things, look at your mark, and then try to figure out a way over it, basically jumping a gorge or something like that. But most importantly, I absolutely love the fact that you can run on the walls until you get up enough momentum and inertia to actually jump the gap that you were trying to get to. It never got old, guys, and I absolutely loved it. It was pretty freaking cool again. Something I also noticed in these sequences is that they make it a lot more of a close call when you actually bridge these gaps. It was freaking funny as hell. The driving mechanic also makes a return, and I actually like this sequence. Just like the previous game, you also get a lot of back and forth between the two characters. It's really enriching to hear them talk, not only make references to the Drake brothers, but also their sarcasm. This is a really cool mechanic, and I'll tell you why. There's a part in the game where it's not necessarily an open world area, but it is more like a sandbox when you're trying to collect certain items and get to the next level in the game. It's also pretty amazing when you consider everything that's going on in the foreground and in the background in this game. It really gives a sense of the horsepower that these games absolutely need in order to run well. Well, fortunately, I didn't see any dips in frame rate, and the quality of the graphics remained true the whole time. You also get to use the winch mechanic again. Now, while not as spectacular as Uncharted 4 at Thief's End in terms of the set pieces and some of the things that you have to survive, it is there again, but I think that it was just a little bit contrived. It was forced in there because I guess fans really liked it before, but it doesn't really have too much significance aside from getting you to the next level or getting you through an entrance that's already blocked. But otherwise, it was still pretty fun. Whatever, I'm glad that they had it. Now, gunplay is just as satisfying as ever, though I will say this, guys. At the beginning of the game when you're picking your options, make sure you take off the auto aim. It absolutely sucks with the auto aim. It's way too easy, guys, so turn it off. Now, in my humble opinion, one of the strengths of this game is definitely in the puzzles, and I have to admit that the puzzles here were a lot more interesting and a lot more intricate than they were in the previous titles. It's not to say that those puzzles were not awesome on their own right, but these ones are just a little bit cooler, and they're a lot harder to figure out. Now, granted, eventually with sequencing, you'll eventually get through them, but prior to doing that, they're almost frustrating to the point where you get a little bit pissed off. But once you complete the puzzles, you do have a sense of satisfaction, and I remember how much I loved that. Now, visuals and game mechanics aside, the strength of any title is whether or not you are in love with the characters and you actually believe them, that they're actual real people. And I have to say, guys, what they've done with Chloe and Nadine is spectacular. They are so fleshed out, and one of the great things, and I'm not going to spoil this for you guys, but there was a part in the game where you actually get to slow down. What it is an incredible vehicle for some great exposition. And this is how it's done, guys, whether it's in a video game or it's in a movie. This is how you should do it to endear yourself to your characters. And I have to say, guys, they absolutely grabbed me. I love Chloe and I love Nadine. They are amazing, strong female protagonists, and I'm so glad that Naughty Dog went this route. You know, I have to admit, I was a little bit nervous about the prospect of a Naughty Dog game, particularly the Uncharted series, without Nathan Drake. But those fears are completely dashed, and one of the reasons is that these characters are absolutely brilliant. And while I would love to see another Uncharted game with Nathan Drake, I am fascinated to see where they're going to go with these characters because they're absolutely brilliant, guys. Alright everybody, so that's my official review on Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. As always, I thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next AGR's Pop Culture Reviews, and until then, adventure on.